Okay, I guess that means I'm on. That was an abrupt end to a beautiful beginning. Welcome and peace, everyone. Of course, I'm Chief Yuya, as you can see right there on the screen. And you're at the Anu study session. The Anu study session. Let me bring up the chat. I want to, I like to have that in front of me as I'm speaking in the event that, just so I don't miss any questions, anything like that. Yeah, man, I will that everyone had a peaceful, strong, that the past 6 days have been action-packed and productive and safe, psychically safe. There's so many psychic attacks that are being put forth right now. And I just will that everyone has been moving with wisdom and obviously keeping yourself physically safe as well. But psychically, you got to protect the psyche. It's so important. You know, we're in a time right now where people are trying to get you to think that you don't have a psychic body, you know, so they can have it. It's like you don't know what to do with that. Give it to me. You know, you don't need that. Just focus on your earthen body. So, you know, I just trust that everyone has been moving safe. And peace to everyone in the chat. Shabbat shalom. You know, Shabbat shalom. El Kara, Steph Love, Safta Hava. Yeah, and I put in the chat. And thank you for the one, Anu Life Ministries, whoever's rolling, working that back end. Thank you. And I put in the chat, you know, let's just get it popping. Don't wait for me to ask. You know, sometimes what I've noticed is that when I'm doing the Sabbath insights, people have questions that during that time that are maybe not always related to what's being spoken about at the time. And I understand that. I think that's just because people are just used to me. Some people just know me from the live call-in segments where even if I was a guest on somebody else's station where I would just be answering questions all day and night. But when I do the Sabbath sessions, it's more like, yeah, it's a little bit more targeted and more focused on what we're working on. But this is the actual time where you jump in and say, okay, I got some random ideas, I got some random questions. So I'm just going to put that. I know not everyone is going to get that right now, but maybe when they, might go back and listen to this later, they'll hear it. So they'll kind of know how to, and I'll keep saying it a couple more times, for people who might not tune in right away. So this is the study session is your time where you ask those questions. So again, I just want to, welcome everyone into the chat, welcome everyone into the space. And especially those of you who are observing Sabbath, those of you who are taking this time to recognize your spiritual luxury. I know a lot of people, they get on the move, or they lock themselves into someone else's occultic clock and not really knowing or understanding why that clock is what it is, and they just follow it. We always just on Saturdays, we always just hang out, or, we always go to church on Sundays, and we always work Monday through Friday from 9 to 5, and maybe sometimes people don't really know why those days and those hours are utilized as such. But yeah, so for those of you who have reached beyond it and have decided and understood that there's something more to life to examine than what's been presented and given to you, then I definitely commend you. For those of you who are observing Sabbath, for some of you, it might just be an opportunity right now just to learn something or to dig into some information, whatever it is, whatever brings you in, man. But I do urge you all, if you are of the original bloodstreams, you got to get back into your culture. You have to get back into your culture because it's the only way you unify all the components of what you are. Sometimes we just lose sight of the life that we have to explore outside of this earth reality. We think this is it. And then all of our aspirations are tied up into being earthlings and how cool and wonderful it can be to be the best earthling you can be. Or people say things like, I want to leave a legacy while I'm on earth. I want to leave a legacy. And it's like your legacy is not on earth because earth is a temporary experience. So nothing really that you do here is forever. This is all a very transient experience. That's why the spirits that you come from, they don't go crazy about pulling you back. Everyone is not, you don't have all of these instances of a biku. And a biku we know, and our Yoruba word, for like children who are born, who transition early, we'll say, young people who are born, sometimes as babies, infants, toddlers, and they come and go, right? And we call them the abiku. But, that's not always because something is pulling them back to heaven, or pulling them back to another dimension. Just like you have as above, so below. So just like you have an experience here, you haven't experienced elsewhere. I think that's pretty fitting too, considering I've been doing this series on our seventh day. I've been doing this series on family, on the construction of the divine family and the science of the divine family. And I've really been taking time with just giving small chunks, as opposed to just, you got to be a good person. You got to do that, but really just showing each component, improving each component as we go. So that way you really have a method in what comes first and what comes after what. But, in the same instance that you would have a divine family on the planet Earth, I would hope that you would always understand that if as above, so below. So as you have a family and you have a community on earth, you have the same thing in heaven. And everybody is always saying goodbye. So like when we're on earth, we say goodbye when people transition and we know that they go to another place, they go to another realm. And sometimes we'll not fret because we'll either know, okay, either I'm going to see this person again, or this person, like in the terms of them coming back again and reincarnating, or at some point I'm going to go to where they are, right? But either way, we have this ideation that no matter what, the person is not lost to me. But everything flips, so just like a baby comes into the world, the baby dies in its old world. You see, and it's just like an elder in this world exits this world, that same elder dies in this world to be born someplace else. So it's sort of the same experience, man. Just like we have family here, we have family in what some people will call heaven or Orun, and we have family that we say goodbye to. And they say, okay, well, we'll see you again. And then you come into the earth and you get an earth husband, you get an earth wife, you get earth children, you get a whole earth family, right? And your family in heaven isn't stressing it. And when babies are first born, they see their heavenly family. They see their family from before. That's why a lot of times you'll have a child and you'll be like, what are you looking at? Because they can still see until they get older. When they get older, they start, in order for them to conform into society, they have to learn the science of lying. And the first person they have to lie to is themselves. That's the only way they can really survive in a wicked society. You got to learn how to lie, so you see things and, you're a baby, your child, you see your family all around you, your spiritual family, and who's not your spiritual family. And then people tell you, well, you're not going to be able to, you got to go to school and you got to be around other people. You got to learn to get along with all the other children, no matter how weak and wicked and savage they are. You got to get along with them. And you got to get along with your uncles and your aunts and, this one and your brother and your sister. So you learn to start lying to yourself about what you actually can see so that you could survive on earth. And then as you get older, you tend to stop lying. You don't care anymore, because you're returning back again. So there's this complement of what we have below and what we have above that we should always pay attention to. But, when you come to earth and you get your earth wife and you get your earth husband and your earth children, you don't divorce from your heavenly wife and your heavenly husband and your heavenly children. You still have those, and it's just a little bit of swinging going on. A little bit of terrestrial swinging because they know, okay, well, you'll be back. You're just going to go and experience this thing and then you'll come back here. And the same way when people transition here, we say, okay, they're gone, but you'll be back. And whatever they're going to experience next, we know we still own them and identify them. We own that spirit and identify that spirit as, that was my grandfather, that was my grandmother, that was, my this, my that, my that, my that. But there's a whole nother life that's experienced, outside of the terrestrial, just like there's a whole life that's experienced outside of the celestial. Okay, I saw Steph Love had something. Besides resting during the Sabbath, what are some things that we should and should not be doing during this time? I'm still pretty new to keeping the Sabbath and want to grasp a better understanding. Good question. So let me start with this, Steph, and I know it's just the way you asked the question. If I may, Steph. I know it's Steph Love. I don't know if you got to say the whole thing, but I'll start with, I know it's a basic question, but I'm gonna say this: like, don't focus so much on what you should or should not do. Like, that's where you start to lose it. You want to look at more of like what you could or could not do, and the advantages that come. So typically on Sabbath we don't work, right? And essentially, and I did a video on this some time ago, the seven cycles. And it would be good to check that video out. It might give you even more than what I'm going to tell you right now. Well, it should give you more than what I'm going to tell you right now. But some of the things that we don't do are we don't do things that activate our human identity, right? So what sustains the human identity, right? Maybe it could be your 9 to 5, it could be your side hustle, it could be your business that you own, it could be buying things, selling things, working, the things that sustain the flesh. So during that sabbatical period, that sabbatical rest, what you're doing is you're giving the fleshly body a rest, right? Now, there's a couple of pieces to this that's important, that goes beyond just the actual action. In anything, don't never just look at like the action. That's why I said that the should or should not do. You got to be careful with that, because that will keep you in like sort of a religious space where it's like you don't really gain the esoteric value of what you're doing, right? So six, we know there's 6 carbons, 6 neutrons, 6 electrons, right? Or 666, the number of man. Man being mem alf nun, woman, man, child, right? Our 666. So we know that six is that human reality, right? Whereas the seventh is the divine reality. So our 6 days, are Sunday. I'm just going to use these terms, Sunday, Monday. I be forgetting the days because I don't use them as much. Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, right? Or as we would say, Yom Rishon, Yom Sheni, Yom Shlishli, Yom Revi, Yom Chamashi, and Yom Shishi, right? But don't worry about it. So, or you could just say first day, second day, third day, fourth day, fifth day, sixth day, which is cool too. So during that 6 day period, you're doing earthly work, right? So on that 7th period, you're doing heavenly work, right? So when we say don't work, or like things that you should do or could do, which I prefer a little bit more, because it should is just like always that bondage kind of thing, don't do that, don't do that, shouldn't do that, shouldn't do that. And sometimes I'm not saying there's anything wrong with those words, but sometimes we have to be careful as people who have been subjected to colonialism. We have to be careful because a, a lot of what we are and have been and think is colonized. Our very thinking, the fact that the language I'm sharing this in right now, right? So to go hard on your work, and you want to take that on your earthly work, and that 7th day, really, you go hard on your spiritual work. And your spiritual work may be like, hey, I'm gonna meditate for 3 hours today, or for an hour today. I'm gonna just meditate, take a break for an hour, maybe drink some water, drink some tea, whatever, listen to something nutritious to my soul. Then I'm gonna go back in, meditate for another hour. Then maybe I'm gonna rest, I'm gonna take a nap, whatever it is, but you're doing things where you're going inner. Whereas those first 6 days of your cycle, first day, second day, third day, fourth day, fifth day, sixth day, you're doing things that are external, right? So driving to work, um, working on your side hustle, working on your website, working on your social media posts, whatever it is that you do to sustain the body. Those are the things that you do during that sixth cycle. And then on the 7th cycle, you're doing things that sustain the spirit. So even though it's a rest of the body. That's why it says that the Elohim rested from their work, right? But what was the work? Well, the work was external, because I'm I'm cultivating something outside of me, whether it be the skies and the earth and the plains and this and that. I'm cultivating outside of me. So it's not like on the seventh day that Elohim were like, whoo, we couldn't go another day. It's no, this is the cycle that the universe works in. 6 cycles of labor externally, 1 cycle of internal. It's like anything. Like when you take certain herbs. People think, oh, I found this new herb, I'm just going to take it every day. You can't take herbs every day. They become poisonous and they lose their effects but the body adjusts to whatever it is that you're taking. So if you're taking a certain herb, you want to cycle it. Always cycle your herbs, whether it's 6 days on, 1 day off, 12 days on, 2 days off, or 3 days off, or sometimes 30 days on, 6 days off. You figure out the cycle that works for you, but you always cycle. Everything is in cycles. Even your own personal energy is in a cycle. You'll find that throughout the year, I'm on it during this particular time, but around this month or so, things just kind of don't work for me. Those are probably the months you should be taking a sabbatical. You should be pulling back. And if you had things your way, you might say, okay, for instance, you might say, just an example, I work from, July to December, and then I take off January and February and start back in for March. Because January and February, things never work right for me. My energy is low. Well, that's giving you a sign. Those are your sabbatical months. That's when you should be stopping and you should be feeding the spirit. So yeah, during Sabbath, you want to do things that feed the spirit, and be careful because sometimes like your satanic thinking and thoughts will try to trick you. So you'll be like, I don't know. My little cousin's graduating from high school. So I'm gonna go to the high school graduation. It's on Saturday because like I'm spending time with my family. Well, is your family a part of your spiritual community? Your blood family? Are they a part of your spiritual family, or are they on something else? And you're not when you're around them, you're not really being fed at the soul level. You see, and then also you might say, well, they're graduating from high school. Like I'm just using that as an example, right? Well, think about it. For me, I go to the root. I'm not going to high school graduations because I'm not one who advocates what the state has to teach or what most private schools have to teach, right? So if I was to go to your graduation and celebrate, I'm celebrating your indoctrination. That's not happening. So you ain't gonna catch me there, right? So there are certain things it's not gonna happen. I'm gonna sacrifice. So there are a lot of times, like this. Sometimes there's great Saturday activities, like there could be a street festival. A lot of times your cultural festivals happen on Saturdays, right? Whether it's the Haitian Day Parade or it's the, African American Day Parade or whatever it is, right? And you're like, well, when I go there, I feel good. I'm around my people, but you feel good, but what is it really doing for your soul and spirit? And you might realize that, like, well, I do like going and seeing the dancing and seeing the drums, picking up some new oils and some jewelry and all that kind of stuff like that. But that's not really the spiritual culture that I'm on right now, to be honest. If I was to be completely honest. So that may be something I have to sacrifice. Maybe I can go after sundown. Maybe I can go on first day, Sunday, something like that. So those are just different ideas. So I know I didn't list a lot of activities because I'd rather kind of share the concept with you, and then you can use that to hold against the activities that you may be engaged in. And then you can make a decision like, okay, is this feeding the soul? If it is feeding the spirit, which spirit is it feeding? Is it feeding the soul, or is this a part of my external work, my human work, and my network? Okay, it's a networking event on Saturdays. And I might say, well, it is a spiritual and divine thing to make sure that I can eat and that my family can eat. But like you're reaching now, and there's something very special and very divine about being able to say, I don't have to hustle and grind every day. See, that's a statement of faith. That's a statement of royalty. A royal person will say, look, I can stop working at 6 p.m. When the sun goes down, I don't have to keep working anymore. Why would I keep working? That was only Only people who were of the slave class would have to work through the night. That goes back to another country and another time when all of the other aristocrats, they knew like when the sun went down around 6:30, it was leisure hour. But their servants would still have to serve meals and serve drinks and clean things up and sometimes perform sexual favors and all. They have to work all night, right? That was a slave's experience. Now, I know there are times when we may choose to work on something through the night, based on who and what we're working for, but it's the same thing when it comes to Sabbath. Have you done so much prolific work between Sunday and Friday, let's say, that you can say, okay, I put things in motion. I can now take my day to feed my spirit. Now, if you're like, damn, I haven't done enough between Sunday and Friday to even feed my spirit, then what kind of life am I living when I can't even give one day to my spirit? I give 6 days to Babylon or 6 days to my physical comfort and my physical survival, and I can't even give one day to my spirit. So that, there's a certain way of thinking as it comes to that. And that's, I wanted to share those things. Okay, she says, good, got it. So it's like a rejuvenation of the spirit. It could be, Steph, if you are rejuvenating your spirit. I would say more so it's like maybe rejuvenation, if rejuvenation is your goal. You know what I mean? Like, if you just rest, does it revive your spirit? Maybe not. Because what does rest mean? Rest just might be like, oh, all day on Saturdays I sleep, I practice Sabbath. Okay, there's a value to that, but is that necessarily addressing spirit? Let's say like if you had a strong where for 6 days you were like, yo, somebody was just testing you, and they were really trying your patience. So then what would you really need on that 7th day? You would need grounding, you would need reassurance, you know what I mean? You would need experiences where you can tap into your self-identity and self-awareness. Because when people test you and you haul off from breaking their face up in half, it takes something from you, because a lot of times you're denying a part of yourself. You're denying yourself sometimes the pleasure of cracking them. So on that 7th day, if I denied that warrior part of me, what part of my spirit needs to be fed? The warrior part of my spirit, because that's what was depleted. So that rejuvenation, if it's targeted, then yeah, it could absolutely be that. Absolutely. If it's targeted in that way. But I would say that in the same instance that you might plan out your like work cycle, plan out your spiritual cycle as well. Look forward to it in the same way. Like if you say, okay, Sabbath is coming up. This Sabbath, I'm gonna get a tent. I'm gonna go to a park, chill in a park, and just like lay out there and read all day, or meditate and read. Maybe burn some lemongrass and just kind of let my mind go where it needs to go. Take my shoes off, put my feet in the dirt. And that's my spiritual work. And I'm gonna do that to sundown, then pack my stuff up and hit the grind again. So all right. So Ron 9 says, is there such thing as being too spiritual? Is there a point where a person concentrate on the spiritual to get away from the real world? Do spiritual people have opposition from evil in the physical? So I would say, starting with the first question, is there such thing as being too spiritual? You can't be more spiritual than you already are. So if someone is purporting like extra spirituality, it's not spirituality. It's usually just feelings. You have a portion of spirit, and you can utilize that portion or you cannot. It would be like saying, is there such a thing as being too much brain? You got the brain that you got. Now you can decide how much you want to utilize it or not. So a lot of times when people are, or what we perceive as being too spiritual, it's really that they're being too vain. And we can sense and feel that vanity. The reality is you got to always remember that what are you other than spirit, right? Other than spirit, you're just clay. That's it. So the whole of you and the animating, most important part of you is spirit. What enlivens you, what directs you, what guides you, what aligns you with your real identity, with your higher self, is your spiritual connection. So the more of that you employ, or the more of that you tap into, then the more directed everything else in your life is, right? But if you ever feel like I'm being too spiritual, it could be a couple of things happening. Some of it could be vanity on each side. Like sometimes a person may feel like I'm too spiritual because um there's something that they shouldn't do that they want to do. And there's that voice is like, go on, live your life. You only live once. Come on. And it's like, yeah, you being too spiritual, just go live your life, right? That's still vanity. It's still vanity. So I would say that I don't think a person could ever be too much of what they come from, and we come from spirit. But if you have that perception of being too spiritual, or a person thinks they're being too spiritual, it's because they're being vain. That's what it is. When you see people walking around and telling you, for instance, you have people tell you how spiritual they are. Anytime you hear a person say something like this, yo, I'm a very spiritual person, that's your first sign it's not a spiritual person. Spiritual people don't even talk like that. Not one iota. Not one iota. You could listen to these shows. I've been doing this since 2010 in different formats, off and on, right? Because I know I'm so inconsistent. I'll take a whole year, don't put nothing up. You've never heard me say I'm a spiritual person in 2010 with 14 years. You never heard me say that, right? You never heard me say I'm brilliant, I'm a genius. You know, those are words for vain people. I'm a spiritual person. What does that even mean? Because you're a person. Everybody is a spiritual person. Everybody is a spiritual person. If a person was not a spiritual person, you wouldn't know who they are, because it's the spirit that brings them into reality. So if a person is in your reality, they're spiritual. Now what? Now how you utilize that spirit is different between each person. But I wouldn't say any one person is more spiritual, because we don't know how much spirit we have. It's like we don't know how much intellect we have. Who knows? Who knows how smart we really are? Who knows how much brain power we really are? All we could do is tap into it and cultivate it. Now, can you cultivate your spirit too much? I would say no. Can you tap into your spirit too much? I would say no. Some people have tiny spirits because they never cultivated them. Your next question is, there a point where persons concentrate on the spiritual to get away from the real world? The spiritual world is the real world. So I would never think that a person would try to tap into their spiritual understandings to get away. Again, that's not spiritual. If you're tapping into your spirituality and your mind, spirituality, to get away from the real world, you're not tapping into spirituality. Most people who use spirituality, quote unquote, for escapism, they're idol worshipers. Only idol worshipers do that. And they could be of any religion. There's idol worship all over. But because when you're tapped into spirituality or your spiritual self, you're not escaping from your real self. You are confronting your real self, because to tap into the spirit means I'm tapping into the spirit world. Is dark. The spirit world is not light. People say, oh, I saw all this light, or I saw all this light. Yeah, you was looking at Lucifer. You was looking at the light bearer. But that's not the spiritual kingdom. The spiritual kingdom is complete darkness. So when I'm tapping into my spiritual self, or the spiritual kingdom, I'm going into the dark to look at what I would normally may not want to look at. That thing that is connected to me and attached to me that I normally wouldn't go to veer at. It's my twin or my doppelganger, right? So that could never be an escape. The escape is our human personality. That's the escape. The escape is politics. The escape is the wars going on in other countries. The escape is, geopolitical oppression, the economy. That's you. That's your actual escape. You see, because once you understand that all this stuff is generated and ran by the unseen or the occult, tapping into the unseen, into the occult, is not the escape. It's the confrontation. You see, because some of the things that you might be wanting to escape from, when you're truly tapping in, you realize that you're the cause of. But you'll never realize you're the cause of those things as long as you stay out of your spiritual kingdom. You see, because remember, the spiritual kingdom is the center for cause, and the human kingdom is the center for effects. So it's like going to the doctor and they only deal with your symptoms, and they never talk about your cause. So as long as they don't talk about your cause, you ain't really doing nothing real. Here, take these painkillers. But why am I in pain? They'll start asking you questions that got nothing to do with anything. Well, how old are you? Well, I'm 32. Well, around 32, people start feeling pain out of nowhere. The body is a mysterious thing, but just take these painkillers while the doctor's leaning out the door. All right, well, they don't want to talk. Leaning out the door while you putting your clothes back on. So I would say no, it's not an escape. Now, you had a third question. Do spiritual people have opposition from evil in the physical? Again, we're all spiritual people, so that ain't gonna work. Anything that's physically opposing you is you. That's your physical opposition. As the scriptures tell us, we wrestle not against flesh and blood, right? We're wrestling against evil powers, principalities in high places. What's the high place? A spiritual place. You see, so we're wrestling against spirit. The trick is for you to think that it's physical. It ain't physical. It's never physical. Even the things that manifest themselves as physical, like we could say that we have a war on food. We have an issue with food sovereignty. Part of the reason is because we don't want to grow our own food. Why don't you want to grow your own food? You don't want the responsibility. You don't want to be out of the city. You want to stay trapped inside of the city. Or you don't want to figure out how you could turn your apartment into a garden. You can. You don't have to put everything on your fire escape and your windowsill. You can get plant lights for your apartment. You could grow anything, you see. But who wants to do all of that? Where am I going to sit? When I have company over, where are they going to sit? Right? So it's always a thinking that, again, restricts what the physicality is or would be. Beloved Anu says, well, okay, I see like doom, go into that place you did not look, and you'll see me staring back at you. Right. And who is me? It's very similar to the Matrix, man. I can't remember which one it was. I don't remember what Matrix number it was, where Neo is fighting, the agent. And after a while, he's fighting so much that the agents start turning into him. And then he's fighting himself. It looks like they look like him. So he's actually fighting himself. You see? So when you go into that dark place, you're going to realize that, if you can take credit for the greatest achievements and accomplishments in your experience, then you also have to take credit for your greatest failures as well. It's always going to be you looking back at you, waiting for acknowledgement. There's parts of you that are weak and wicked and wounded, and that are begging for your acknowledgement, but you are you have your mind too dead set on avoiding and sidestepping and boycotting your spiritual reality. So it throws tampers in your physical reality, you see. And for some, they die living out the tampers, the tantrums of the ignored child inside of them. They never fix it, you see. Okay, I saw something in there. Okay, beloved says, I think about how many may think of the idea of measuring spirit or brain. For instance, if you can perform some sort of spiritual or supernatural act, then somehow you're more spiritual. Yeah, see, like that's because people just don't know what the hell it means. People throw words around, and if you ask them if they know what the word means, they get very upset with you. I have experienced that several times. Or if you start breaking, if you show that you know what the word means and you use it properly, people will get upset, right? So the reality is like, how could you be saying that you're more spiritual means that I got more breath in my body than you have in your body? How is that when, yes, we may have different lung capacity, but we all have a cycling of breath that flows in and out of us? See, that was the science of Yoda in Star Wars. That's why they made Yoda so small like that. So he was one of the most powerful Jedi, if not the most powerful Jedi, but he was tiny. So they were trying to show that your power, it's not necessarily associated with your size or your brawniness. It's your ability to circulate this force, or circulate this chi, or circulate this ruach. So your ability to receive it, let it go, receive it, let it go, that's what brings your power. We call that breathing, right? So the thing is, for some people who perform what we may call a miracle, or when we perform a supernatural act, those are witches and warlocks, right? But you got good witches and warlocks. Not all witches and warlocks are bad. If someone is tapped into a vibration, who comes into the world with a higher or stronger vibration, and they have the ability for to kind of see what's going on a little quicker, or to tap into what's going on a little quicker, we say, oh, that's a miracle, right? So like, imagine if you're surfing and you have someone who can ride more waves than another person. You ride a couple of waves, you get tired, hey, I'm going back to the shore. But the other person, they see the waves coming from way out in the water, and they're just out there all day rocking it. And then you say, oh, that's a miracle. It's not a miracle. This person just has the ability to withstand more wavelengths than the other person. They can withstand more vibration or tune into more vibration than you can. It's like having a person who can hear more than another. Some people have better vision than others, right? It's not miraculous. I just see more than you see. I just hear more than you hear. I can just maybe feel more than you feel, right? Those people are usually assigned to titles of witches or warlocks, but then you have those who strive to be witches and warlocks, and those ones need to be usually eliminated. They're usually idol worshiping, they're leading people astray. No one should ever really strive to be a witch or warlock. And let me put this out there, because it's just like the spiritual thing. When you hear people bragging about being a witch, or you hear people bragging about being a wizard, number one, they're not that, because real wizards and witches don't brag. But those are just Ahabs and Jezebels. I mean, I'm just gonna make it real simple for you. Make it real simple. People who truly have spiritual power, 9 times out of 10, they don't even know what to do with it. 9 times out of 10. People who truly have spiritual power usually channel it in a way that doesn't look like it's magic. These are some of your singers. We just can't get over Whitney Houston. We just can't get over Luther Vandross. When we hear Martin Luther King speak, and Mahalia Jackson sing, there's certain people that when they come into a space, they cause everything to freeze. Why can we only remember Bob Marley, all the amazing artists that came out of the Caribbean? We can just not stop talking about Bob Marley, but I don't think any of those people would have ever said, I'm a wizard. You see, so when they have the power, it just comes through, and we feel it on this side. It's like spirit. You feel the effects of it, but spirit's not walking around saying, I am the Ruach. No, I'm just the spirit. I am Ashe. It's just Ashe flowing and doing what it does, I think Yafe said, like, when people say, ooh, that's deep, but it's only because they haven't heard anything better. Right. Or people will say to you, and you might become, that's where the vanity comes in. Ooh, you real deep. You real deep. How do you, like, maybe I don't think you're deep. Somebody said that to me before once and was like, well, you're a very intelligent man. And I had to tell them right there on the spot. I said, I don't think you're a very intelligent person. So you saying that to me means absolutely nothing. You know, because they were saying it to try to like they were trying to be manipulative. So I put a stop to the party real quick. I don't think you're very smart. So how could you assess my intelligence when I'm looking at you and I think that you're pretty idiotic? You know. So yeah, people will say things are deep, but deep is relative. How deep is deep? You know what I'm saying? So again, vanity will cause us to chase after those accolades of deepness. I want somebody to say I'm deep. You know, I want somebody. Why won't anybody ever say I'm deep? Come on now, I'll be saying some stuff now. You know, we're chasing after those accolades, but the reality is that the simple things in life are the most profound, and the most profound things, the most simplest things, have already been stated. You're just reiterating them. I mean, think about comedians. Comedians never say, the best comedians, the funny ones, they never say anything you've never heard before, ever. All they do is they point out things that you may not have been paying attention to. And then when they point it out, you say, oh, you laugh so hard because it resonates with you because you already saw it or you already heard it. And you say, oh my God, that's true. That's the first thing you say while you're laughing. Oh my God, it's so funny because it's true. So they would be ministers as well. They're of their own ministerial staff. You know, comedians on the planet, they're ministers. Don't ever get that one wrong. They are spiritual emissaries, the good ones, right? But are they standing up there saying, "Hey, I am the minister Michael Epps. You know, I am the minister Dave Chappelle or George Carlin or you know, Patrice O'Neill"? No, they're just letting that spirit flow through them. And as a result, you find that many of them live very tragic lives, like most ministers and spiritual people do. We got very rough lives, you know. So let's see, where was I at? I don't know. It's all chopped up. All right, let me know. I'll be lazy. um, Sometimes the opposite signs is more practical, as if they honed a particular skill or took time to learn their craft. Yeah, I mean, when you are diving into the world of cultivating spirit, it is a craft to learn. But the part to learn is the part that usually people are not interested in. It's the hard stuff. See, people want to learn, like they'll get into Orisha. What do they want to learn? They want to learn spells, rituals, and songs. So that way, when they get around their friends and they get close to a river, they can start singing a song to Oshun, and everybody say, "I didn't know you knew how to." Yeah, you know, that's my thing. That's what I do. Corny, you know. But like I've said in older shows, what is water? Why don't you start there? If you are Omo Oshun, break down hydrogen and oxygen to me. H2O. Explain to me how water forms. Explain to me the properties of fresh water as opposed to salt water. You know, tell me something about Osogbo, the history of Osogbo, and the forest of Osogbo. Let me learn about those. See, but that's not really sexy. I want to just wear my yellow, wear my white with my yellow beads, and put sunflowers all over the place, and honey, and you know. So you ain't got no power. You got zero power. Zero. You got a look. You got a really cool looking aesthetic. Yeah, it looks cool. It looks exotic, but there's no power there, you know. So yeah, when you really are cultivating a craft, you're taking it serious and you're learning the practical sciences of it. And the practical sciences of it give way to the metaphysics. See, metaphysics and mythology take over where science leaves off. But you first have to go through the science. And when you get to the pinnacle of the science, where now you're just floating in theory, because you've gone through all of the practical basis of science analysis of science, now it's just a theory, then that's where mythology comes in. And you can now start making sense of the mythology. But if you start at the mythology and skip the science, you ain't gonna know what the heck you're talking about. I mean, you could go on social media and see 1,000 posts of that. People just saying stuff. Like, I see people sometimes who's supposed to be in the health, and they'll talk about certain things that are in the body or certain foods, and people be like, "Oh, that's deep." But do you know anything about how the body works? Because if you do, you might realize some of that's not making any sense. But I'm gonna tell you how it gets interesting when you talk about use that word practical. If you are in the world of spirit and you understand how things work from a scientific, practical earth perspective, people will discredit your level of spirituality, because no one ever imagines that a person who's actually scientific and learned could also be spiritual. There's this thought that it's science versus religion, right? And not understanding that if you truly value, it's just like, again, I'll go back to the Orisha thing. You want to be Orisha people all day. How many of you speak Yoruba? How many of you have spent more than 6 months at a time in Nigeria? Then it's not you. See, you taking on the shiny, exotic parts of it, but you're not really trying to get where it's down and dirty when you're around those people who are celebrating, because you come for 3 days or 7 days to go get initiated, and everybody's celebrating you and dancing around you. Wait till those nairas start running thin. Spend a month or two there. When the nairas start running thin and you ain't taking everybody out to eat and you ain't paying for everybody's school fees and stuff, and your money start getting thin, and you start to see how they really are. When the real come out, you see, then you'll understand what some of the spells were for. Why is there so many protection spells? Why is there so many stories of not getting along in war? You ain't lived around these people. You don't really know how they are, right? And I'm not just saying that about, Nigerians. I'm talking about anybody, who you're idolizing, or any religion that you're idolizing. Learn the depths of that religion. Learn what's going on within it. Where did it spring from? Where is the holy city of that system? You see, how do they behave in that holy system? If you go into a country, you could go to a place like Thailand, where the national religion is Buddhism. How do they behave in general? How do they behave? Because I want to see the effects that this religion has had on these people. If I go to Nigeria, I mean, everybody in Nigeria is not Europe, but you're going to find more Christians than Muslims. But, if I go into an area where there's a lot of people who are practicing Isheshe, or what you might call Ifa or Orisha, and the people are still are wicked, and they're scamming, and they're duplicitous, and they're liars, then I'm going to look and say, well, is this the end product of this belief system? Of this faith system, of this knowing system? Is this the end product? People who behave like this? So I need to re-examine this system, because shouldn't it produce the best people? If we look at the nation of Islam, we're going to immediately know one thing that it definitely produces: discipline. It's undeniable. You're going to look at the fruits of Islam, the FOI. You're going to look at the MGT and the GCC. You're going to look at them at their classes, and you're going to look at those women, and you're going to see discipline. You're going to look at those men, you're going to see discipline. If you don't know nothing else, you're going to know that. You're never going to see an FOI in the middle of the street cursing and going crazy. You're not going to see that. So you now get a sense of what that tradition produces. You see. But let's just say, if we say we're Anu, and we are still so very excited about things that are in the world. Like right now, I could do all this teaching right now. Let me start reciting some Pimp C lyrics or some Gucci Mane lyrics, and watch how the chat will light up. Watch all the LOLs and the laughing, and I hear that. That tells me right there what produced you. That tells me where you coming from. That's you right there. You see, people think that stuff is cute. That stuff is idiotic, and it's need I say retarded. Literally, it's spiritually retarded. You're going backwards. You think that stuff is cute. And you see so many people who claim to be woke, and they mix that together like, well, I'm ghetto, but I'm woke. What? Ghetto thought is slave thought. How could you be mentally alive and erect and be thinking like a slave at the same time? The two won't occupy the same space at the same time. You're one or the other, and I already know which one you are. You know what I'm saying? Just by what you just said. You see, so what is being produced in you? See, that's where holiness comes in. We got that word holiness so twisted. We think it just means doing the right thing all the time. To be holy means to be separate, means I don't do what y'all do. That's it. Well, what do you do then? Not what you do. So let's start right there. I'm holy. I'm over here. I'm doing something different. You see? All right, where we at? So, beloved says that this reminds me of something a relative would say about certain people. He would say that person is, I'm sure it wasn't annotated, but anointed. Yeah, but do people know what the anointing is? A lot of people think the anointing is when you pray for them and you fall out. Every time you pray for them, I feel the power of God and I fall out. That ain't anointing. You know. Sovereignty says, so people learn what they think is the human standard that seems to validate the spiritual nature, how well they look, spiritual, such as the songs, etc. They also learn what they think is the currency of the African spirituality, quote unquote, so they can make transactions rather than bestow and give, is to learn the rituals and songs to extract. Right, because I mean, okay, again, the idea of African spirituality. What the heck is that? See, you're already, if you want to dive into African spirituality, you can't dive into it thinking like a European. See, a European is looking from the outside and saying those black people. So if you're looking from the outside and saying those black people, you're going to call it African spirituality, black spirituality. You're going to lump it all together like it's a monolith. You see, because you're going to be like, well, all them people look alike to me. They all look the same to me, right? But if you can't see the differences, which are not subtle, the differences between an Igbo man and a Hausa man are not subtle. They're not. Physically, they don't look the same. They don't eat the same. They don't speak the same. They God ain't got the same name. You see? So when you're coming into these regions and you're coming in with a Eurocentric mind frame, then yeah, you're gonna practice that spirituality with that same Eurocentric mind frame. So what happens is you're gonna end up in the hands of Nephilim. They're waiting for you. They're waiting for you. Because they're like, look, if you're not coming with the authority of your father, Yah, then we're gonna run through you like we do these other groups. If that's what you want to do, you know, it's like the kid who grew up in a good house. I mean, I can relate to this. Who grows up in a well, I don't say a nice house. Let's say a suburban home, but hangs out in the hood, does everything in the hood, and it's like you don't really need to be in the hood. Like you don't have a hard luck story where you have to go and peddle certain substances and things like that because you have to take care of your family. You don't really have that story. You just like being bad. you looking for trouble. You see? So it's the same instance when you're the chosen people, they're true chosen people, and then you decide that you want to approach anything in the world from the perspective of accursed people. People who done did people dirty for since they've been around, and you're going to approach the world from their perspective. So then you're going to approach your own spirituality from their perspective. So you're going to say things like African spirituality. There's no such thing. There's no such thing. African spirituality. What the heck is that? So the spirituality of a Eritrean man is the same spirituality of a Tanzanian man, which is the same spirituality of a Somalian man, which is the same spirituality of a Congolese man, which is the same spirituality of a Togo man, which is the same spirituality of a Burkina Faso man, which is the same spirituality of an Israelite man. Come on, stop. No, we know that. We know they don't even look alike. They don't even look alike. They don't eat. Ethiopian food ain't like West African food. West African food ain't like South African food. You see, the music ain't even the same. The dances ain't even the same. Ethiopia, everything's in the shoulders. You know. So that's the thing with it, man. It's, yeah, when you approach it from that perspective, then you get treated like the less than. You know, like, oh, you want this spiritual ghetto experience? I'll give it to you. Your father gave you something better, but you want this? Okay. Whereas you should be coming into those, when you were in the world, you were as gods. Remember that scripture? You were as gods, but you don't want to be a god. You want to go and serve lesser gods. Listen, if you want me to help you out with something, I've helped people move. I've given people money for school. I've given people clothes out of my closet, shoes out of my closet, rides places. I've given away cars. I mean, I can't count the amount of things I've given away in my lifetime. And I'm going to tell you something really important. No one ever gave me rum, gin, palm wine, cola nuts, coconut, candles. No one ever had to give me any of those things for me to give them blessings. All they did was just, either I saw a need and we were close enough that I could see that need, or they asked me for help and I gave the help. You don't have to give me honey for me to give you money. Just tell me, what's up? What's going on with you? Here, take this. You think about that science for a second. When you were in the world, you were as gods. So if I require fuel to do something for you, what kind of God am I? If I can't just do it because you open your mouth, what kind of God am I? You see? Especially if I'm giving you these things secretly and privately, and it provides no benefit for me. It's not like I'm getting now attention and glory, and I'm feeding off of that attention and glory because I just gave you a car. Nobody even knows I gave you that car. It's only between you and I. Or maybe not even that. You might just get an anonymous donation. So I'm getting no glory. I'm getting nothing. So who's the more powerful God? I don't know if that went over anybody's head. Okay, I did skip something in there. Yeah, El Karar says, Chief said in an archive show that comedians are part of a priesthood. Yep. I've been banging on that concept for years now. I've been trying to point people to that. Comedians are not just to laugh at. They serve a sacred, divine purpose. Your Richard Pryors, and you got gods of comedians. Your Pigmeat Markhams, your Richard Pryors, your Red Foxes, your Bernie Macs. You know, there's certain people who are deities in that realm, you know, whether it's comedy, music, yeah. Beloved said, I never understood. Oh, Micah, I'm sorry. Micah 5:12 tells us that those who do witchcraft will be destroyed so they cannot cast spells. So the Nephilim technology will be obliterated. I wouldn't necessarily say obliterated, but think about those who do witchcraft will be destroyed so they cannot cast spells. We could break that down. Actually, why don't we do that? That's what study is about, right? I'm gonna look it up real quick. While I'm looking it up, I'm gonna go to the next comment. There was another one I saw. Beloved said, you've been saying that for years. There's no such thing as African spirituality. Yeah, but people are slow. People are so slow. They're frustratingly slow. When you say there's no such thing as African spirituality, it requires a person to think. They don't feel like doing that. You know, so it's just like, I hear you, Chief. They don't really want to think about, well, what does that mean? Or that may mean that, like, because even, like, again, everybody's banging on Orisha. Are you Nigerian? Don't tell me about no ancestry or 23andMe test. Are you actually Nigerian? Can you actually trace your roots to Nigeria? Now, first of all, I know you can't. But even if you could trace your roots to Nigeria, are you serving your family deities? because everybody has a deity, a god that is assigned to their family. And if you understood the science behind that, you would understand that that's the actual servitude. That's the slavery. Every family has their own god. So you might go get initiated as this one or that one. Was that your family god? Are you Nigerian? If not, let me tell you something, man. You're making a jackass out of yourself. You're making a jackass out of yourself. It's like if a Nigerian came over here and told you that they don't want to marry no Nigerian mate and don't want to eat no Nigerian food or talk no Nigerian language. They sitting there eating pizza and lo mein every night, getting sicker and sicker, and trying to. I mean, they do actually do that. If you've ever been to the continent and how they answer the phone, it's hilarious. But they do try to sound like they're from England when they speak English, which is really funny. But I guess it's funny that we do the same thing. But, you know, you would look at them like, what's wrong with you? You got a whole beautiful, rich culture and you throwing it away for this? Right. So let's go Michael 5:12, but we're going to go a little bit before. I'm going to go to like 9. Thine hand shall be lifted up upon thine adversaries, and all thy enemies shall be cut off. And it shall come to pass in that day, saith Yahuwah, that I will cut off thy horses out of the midst of thee, and I will destroy thy chariots. And I will cut off the cities of thy land, and throw down all thy strongholds. And I will cut off witchcrafts out of thine hand, and thou shalt have no more soothsayers. Thy graven images also will I cut off, and thy standing images out of the midst of thee, and thou shalt no more worship the work of thine hands. And I will pluck up thy groves out of the midst of thee, so I will destroy thy cities. And I will execute vengeance and anger and fury upon the heathen, such as they have not heard. I ain't even gonna break it down yet. I want to see what y'all got from that. How do y'all interpret that first? What is it? How does that hit you when you read that? Or when you hear it? While y'all are breaking that down, we'll go to the next thing. David Caru says, and if I mispronounce your name, I apologize. Feel free to put the phonetics in the chat. What you say reminds me of a video you did on spiritually handicapped. Yeah, I remember that one. So are you saying approaching it like that will make one a slave to it instead of using it as a tool? That's exactly what I'm saying. That's exactly what I'm saying. And here's the thing about it, David. Like, when you learn when you learn what you are, certain tools you don't even need. You know what I mean? Like, it's like, I don't need training wheels anymore. There was a time I did have training wheels on my bike, and I'm very appreciative of those training wheels. But if I would have became too dependent on those training wheels, I would have never learned how to ride a bike. But once I took the training wheels off, now I could do tricks on the bike. Because you can't do tricks with training wheels. You can't lean to the side and all kind of, skid out and stuff like that, because the training wheels won't allow you to do it, right? So they actually become a handicap in that sense, right? So once I become accustomed and attuned to who and what I am, I start to realize that certain things I don't need. See, you got to know who you are and who your people are, what your people are. See, that's so important, because it's just like I can say, experiencing that as a man who's getting older now. There's so many things that I hear or heard that was supposed to start happening to my body like 10, 15 years ago. Oh, when you turn this age, it's going to happen. That's going to happen. It ain't happened yet. But meanwhile, if I speak to other men of my ilk and of my ethnicity and of my same fabric, they're like, nah, I'm good. I'm still doing this. I'm still doing that. I'm all right. You see? So if I'm sitting there taking on someone else's perspective, I would actually handicap myself. I would that has nothing to do with me, because I don't know my own self-awareness. When you're self-aware and you know your self-shape and you're self-defining, then you get a better sense of what you align to and what you don't align to. But when you don't have anything, you align with anything and not realizing like it's not even matching. So that's when we're talking about like you're approaching certain, and we don't want to say certain things because it feels so blasphemous, because we don't really know what fallen entities are. But I've been saying it for years. Go to the early, you can go to the very first podcast I did, which was on Ori. I said, you're not supposed to worship these beings. I've said it, I've been saying it for years now. You are not supposed to worship them. You are older than them. If you read the book Grasping Root of Divine Power, I put that out in what, 2010, 2009, somewhere around there. What did I say in the book? I broke down the word Orisha. How many people practice Orisha sciences can't even break the words down? Ori, consciousness, Sha, to select or to seat. Who's selecting the consciousness? If I'm the one selecting the different consciousnesses, then that means I'm the boss. I'm the one who's in charge. So why would I bow down and worship something that I don't even have to select? I could be like, look, you're going to stay in the corner. I ain't going to choose you. You could just sit right over there. I'm going to work with this one instead. I've been saying this for years, but people are very mentally lazy sometimes, and we love our idols. We love to worship idols. We love to build something out of clay and put it in the corner of the room. You know, you go to a lot of like shops, even like your Pier 1 shops. You know, clay, especially like in Hindu culture, a lot of times clay was used to create bowls, you know, that would be devoted to like Vishnu, for instance, because it was said that Vishnu crafted people out of clay. No different than like in Kemetic culture, you had Khnum, and Khnum crafted, you know, the bodies of people out of clay. He was a potter. Khnum was the potter. You know, Khnum also, you know, is associated as well with Ptah, where you get potter, Ptah, right? So you have these ideas here of like, this clay. We love our clay and our wood, and we build these idols, and we bow down in front of them, and we pour things on top of them, and we hug them, and you know, we put candles in front of them. We love our idol worship, not realizing like that is your handicap, because you're too lazy to tap into your actual power. So you'll have the idol in front of you. You'll light a candle. You pour some palm oil on it. You put some blood on it, and something moves. You're like, well, I did this and this worked. Okay, cool. But what if you wouldn't have done that, and you would have known what that idol represents? It's an idol. It's a representation of something, and you would have tapped into that thing instead, which exists in another dimension that you have the potential and the ability to tap into. And if you would have understood what the palm oil represents, the blood represents, the water represents, the candle represents, and you would have executed that in that dimension, how much more powerful and faster would that ritual have been? See, when you're stuck in the earth realm, then everything is gonna have to appease and touch your physicality. So when you go to Shango and I felt something go to my body, so what? I go to Ogun, I felt the strength, so what? I went to the water, I felt the presence of Oshun, it was a peace that came up, so what? That's not even all you're missing elements. Earth is only water and earth. That's it. That's why when you read scripture in Bereshit, it says that Adoma is not dust. It's not dirt. It's clay. It's clay. You cannot have clay without water. That's the significance of not saying dust. Oh, out of the dust of the ground. No, not out of the dust, out of the clay. Because there's a combination there that I need. My earthly self is water and clay. So what exists in heaven? Air, fire, ether. Air, fire, and ether are the elements of heaven. Water and earth are the elements of earth. So clay is the element of earth. Air, fire, and ether is the elements of the unseen dimension. You bring those things together and you have us. You see? But when you're stuck in this idolization, you're going to these different fake deities and they're earth representations, which are usually made of some form of clay, which we read about in Deuteronomy. Stone and clay. You worship stone and clay. You see? That's only a part of the puzzle. Where's the air, the ruach? You see, where's the fire or the Oni or the Shesh? Where's the ether or the Ruach or the Emi or the Akasha? That's in heaven. Well, how do I get to heaven? Through you. What's the portal from heaven? Your woman. She's the portal from heaven. Really, to and from heaven is your woman. So there's a combination of elements that you already have existing within you when you're tapped into your real spiritual self and not falling for the games of lower order deities who they're gonna send electrical stimulus through your body. And you're gonna confuse that electrical stimulus for a heavenly movement and transition. And it's not that. You got tricked. You see, you just got tricked, that's all. You see. I have been in shrines before with other priests, and I've seen them do sexual things to their godchildren, and their godchildren didn't even know it was sexual. But I can tell when someone's using, sexual energy doesn't always have to come from the groin. It could be an inflection, a tone in the voice, a touch of the hand of a certain music, a movement, a certain kind of drum playing, a certain kind of incense being burned. Or a certain ritual. It's a whole lot of oil. We just using a lot of palm oil, Baba. Real rap. Like, I've been in those situations. I'm like, that sister's over there going through convulsions. No, she's having an orgasm. I know what an orgasm looks like. She's having an orgasm. You see, you just sending, trying to get any kind of sensation you could send through her body. I've seen it done with guys before too. He's getting sexually turned on, and he thinks it's spiritual. He thinks it's something from the creator, because the combination isn't there. So let me go back to these. Sovereignty says, right, so if spirit is Ruach, then it will animate each vessel and nation differently. Yeah, each vessel receives the Ruach. Don't assume that everything has spirit, but then you have the Ruach HaKodesh. There's a distinction made between spirit and the Holy Spirit. What is the Holy Spirit? The separated spirit. It's like you can get the good one over here that's been separated and kept pure, or you can just get the general one. And it's like the parable of the wheat and the tares. You may not be able to recognize the wheat from the weeds, or the good spirit, or the separated spirit, the pure spirit from the garbage. I don't want to say the garbage, the general one. The only reason I said garbage, because in my mind for a second, I was just thinking about how in certain areas, sometimes we eat garbage food and we think that that's what it is. Like if you buy all of your chicken and steak out of Walmart, you'll never really know that that's not actually probably quality meat that you're eating. So it's not going to have the effect that it should maybe have on your body if you were actually eating quality meat products, So David says, oh, I'm sorry, I think I went too far. How do you find out which deity that's assigned to your bloodline? Why would you want to know that? That's my question to you, Jason. David says, yes, sir, I understand what you're saying. I've watched that one, and honestly, I begin to do that now. I just didn't know which way to go after I separated myself from certain things. Thank you, Chief. You're more than welcome, David. More than welcome. More than welcome. Menelik says, I will cut off everything you've come to depend on besides me. All of this stuff we come to depend on as an unnecessary supplement to the Most High is if we need what we came from to sustain. Exactly. So it's like, how long do you think you're going to be able to rock out playing games, and the time for that is over? You got to think about the waves that things come in. And like the time you get to play from the time you don't get to play. Right? So we're in a season right now where a lot of people who we may have looked at with admiration are being exposed for not being people of good character, right? A lot of people who have led certain groups, and it seems like these groups often are just not, they're not telling the truth. Plain and simple. They're not telling the truth, right? So it's just like, I'm gonna say what I knew. I've run into a lot of people who identify as Hebrew, they identify as Israel. And when they hear me breaking certain things, then they're like, oh wow, hallelujah, brother. Like, okay, absolutely, hallelujah. But then what I will purposely do is start talking about spaceships. I will start talking about the wars and the unknown dimension. I will start talking about the esoterics and the occultism and the metaphysics of Israelite culture to see where they're at. And sometimes like, oh, you can see the look in their face, like, because in that moment I know, like, okay, you're just churchified. You call yourself a Hebrew and you got the tassels on, but you're a church dude. Really, at the end of the day, I'm not a church dude. I'm not that. You know what I mean? So I am an Afrofuturist. Without a shadow of a doubt, I am an Afrofuturist, and I do recognize that there are many gods all around us, walking among us, even, if you want to use that terminology, God, right? And I do understand the relationship that Israel has with Islam, ancient Israel with ancient Islam, not what you got today, right? That's different, right? So that's my holiness. That's my separate. Now, if I decided to get along, I would have more support among, let's just say, the Israelite community, maybe even the Islamic community. I would have way more. If I didn't break down words so much, if I just leave them be and stop messing around so much, if I didn't actually tell you what these words actually really meant, I would get way more support. But the moment I start breaking down things, people, they get turned off. I've seen it happen time and time again. So I'm just so used to it. They just get turned off because they were expecting an emotional experience from me. You see, and when I'm like, no, we're going to sober up and we're going to figure out exactly what we're talking about, and exactly what we're doing so that we can stand in the face of Elohim and not be like little children. You see, mentally, not be childish, but be able to have an intelligent conversation with our ancestors and our creators. You don't want to do that though, because you full of plantation energy. You still want to be. You still looking for a daddy somewhere. I ain't looking for a daddy. I ain't looking for a daddy. I don't want to get off into that one too much. But so that right there separates Anu. Because I've had people come and say, well, Anu, that was a pagan god. You sure? Explain to me how Anu is a pagan god. And when you do that, I want you to tell me what the word Anu means, and I want you to tell me what the word pagan means. And then I want you to tell me what the word God means. If we can start there, and then after you break those three down to me, I just need proper definitions, not what you think it means. Proper definition, and your emotionalism doesn't mean anything to me. Well, brother, come on, brother. Come on, man. You're not moving nothing with that. Break it down unemotionally, and then give me the history. Then let's have a conversation. If you can't do that, then I don't want to talk to you, because we're no longer in that era where we have time to be sitting here playing around with people or playing around with the truth. We don't. There's so much that's off right now that we are becoming desensitized to. I could tell you right now, there was a school shooting last night. You're going to be like, oh, really? You probably won't even look it up on your phone while I'm talking. Like, oh, okay. Because you've been desensitized to that. You see, we're in an election year. How many social media posts are you seeing right now about us being in an election year? None. It's everything else but that. It's Diddy and this one and that one and this friendship fell out and why they fell out. You're being prepared for something and you're not even catching. So we don't really even have the time to be playing around like that anymore. I never played around like that, but I don't have the tolerance anymore for silliness or stupid questions. I just don't give it time and energy, you know. So I would rather separate. I would rather be sanctified, you see. And even like I've said before, I don't even use my Yoruba name. I don't use it because I don't want you associating me with any of these crooked, wicked behind Babalawos out here. Just keep that over there. You see. I could say, well, I knew we're Muslims and we're Hebrew Israelites. I don't even do that. Because then you might start associating us with another movement who was ran by a sexual deviant who's now spending the rest of his life in jail. And we ain't that. You see, y'all know who I'm talking about. So you got to learn the value of separation, of being separate and sacrificing. No, I can't do that with you. No, that's not my thing. That's not what I'm on. Y'all go do it. Have fun. Or someone says, well, this, if I'm talking to an old person, yeah, like I'll cut them some slack. If some old person comes to me and start talking about Jesus, yeah, I happened recently. They said something about Jesus and God bless you. God bless you too. Thank you. I ain't gonna bother you. You know what I'm saying? Like you feeling strong, you walking, you got your cane, and God is good all the time. God, all right, cool. That's what's keeping you invigorated. I rock with you. I give you some of that energy, you see. But outside of that, nah, I'm not showing any mercy to anybody else. I ain't even showing mercy to children. Like if a child comes to be like, Jesus loves you, right? Really? You talking about fairy tales? You like fairy tales? I kid. Let me tell you the real story. So let's see. Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't finish your statement, Master Malik. Sorry about that. So I'm gonna just ourselves and me coming home to the part right. House of Yuya says, answer, I think of people no longer having the ability to manifest anything great. I think of people being lost, not having a vision for the future. Well, it's only the last part. Because manifesting, what are we manifesting at this point? We're manifesting for physical and earthly comfort all the time. We are manifested spirit. What else do you want? Like we are walking miracles. Spirit unfurled itself from the darkness of the universe and created light and created good light. Because for the Most High to say, and let there be light, and there was light, and the light was good, and light and separated the light from the darkness. You know what that means? There was some bad light made before. How would you know the light was good unless you already had some bad light to have the contrast between the two? So we're good light, and we can learn, and we can reason, and we can function. That's a miracle. Miracle's done. What else you want to manifest after that? I want a car. I want a house. Anything you want to manifest is some socially engineered desires. You think you want that Lamborghini because they tell you should have a Lamborghini, but you might have more fun in the cheap little convertible Volkswagen Bug that you could just let the top down and ride around the neighborhood, don't burn no gas, and you don't care if somebody puts a ding in it at the supermarket because it already got dings in it. You love your little car. You see, but you've been socially engineered to, I'm gonna build a house. You only need a 1-bedroom house. You don't even like company. Well, I want to build at least 2 or 3 bedrooms so when visitors come over. Visitors come over, you could just lay some mattresses down in the living room. Everybody sleep on the floor. But you've been socially, engineered to want certain things that make absolutely zero sense. We still looking for what we can, let's manifest this and let's manifest that. Everything you manifesting is temporary. Let's evolve. Let's evolve. You see? David said, give thanks. There's a lot to say about my experience about people using that system, but you're not wrong at all. Thanks again, Chief. Sure thing. More than welcome. Beloved says, it's interesting because I think of how many quote unquote, spiritual people would speak of, well, I'm sorry. Let me start that again. I'm trying to go back forth between this screen, that screen. Let me read the one that's here. It's interesting because think of how many quote unquote spiritual people would speak of spirit. But since being in Anu, this is the first place I was taught about the Ruach, the Holy Spirit, and that there is a difference. And that there is not there. And that there is a difference. So is it a matter of manifesting for your soul or you're trying to, okay, so that is the difference, is the main thing. Right, because That's the whole I'm a spiritual person. Well, I'm a fleshly person. I'm a mental person. I'm an emotional person. We are all those things. You know what I mean? So people get so excited by spirit because they're fiending for anything that they'll accept any spirit, any diverse spirit. If it comes and has a conversation with you, you'll sit there like, okay, let's talk, let's rap. You see, you're not looking for the good spirit. You're not looking for the right light. You just want something to have a conversation with you because you feel that empty and desolate inside. So if you go and you hug a tree and you hear the tree spirit speaking to you, you now think forest spirits are innocent spirits. You don't know nothing about that tree. You don't even know if that's a tree. But it spoke to me. Well, you know what? We have fairy tales about that, like Hansel and Gretel going into the woods, and there's a house made of candy, and there's a witch that's over there eating little children. You see? Because you just want something to connect with you so bad. That's how you get molested by spirits. That's how you get molested by spirits. Because you wanted that attention, that spiritual attention so bad. And then eventually they start finessing you out of your genitals, out of your reproductive fluids. They start finessing you out of them. And now you know you're asleep at night and you're having these visions of having sex with spirits, or you can't stop touching yourself. You can't stop masturbating. And you thinking that when you masturbate, that vaginal fluid or that seminal fluid is just going down the sink, or it's just going into a tissue, or it's just going into the toilet, wherever you're getting rid of, or a sock. And you're not realizing that there's spirits, phantasms they're called, that are feeding off of your sexual fluid. So you sit and wonder, like, why do I want to masturbate all the time? Because you are having conversations with spirits you have no business having conversations with, and that's how they're feeding off. They're feeding off of your. This is where I talk about that you have families in heaven, you have families on earth. You see, and in certain systems, like again, you look at the voodoo systems, you look at candomblé. The way that's often practiced is that you have a spiritual husband or spiritual wife. Certain days of the night, you can't sleep in the bed with your human husband and human wife, because that's the night that you may sleep with your Ogu, or if that's your husband, or Urzuli, you might be sleeping in the bed with Urzuli. If you only knew how off that is, if you only knew how off that way of practicing those systems are. But this is how people rock out, because this is what these spirits demand, because they have control of them. It's hard to let go once vanity sets in. It's so hard to let go. Once the spirit, because that's what they offer, vanity. And they let you know, we're gonna strip you of everything we've made you become. You don't want that. You see? It's like, let's say I've been speaking all this stuff all these years about real esoteric information, occultism, so forth and so on. A spirit comes to me and says, if you give all of that up, we'll make you the biggest Christian mega church pastor there ever was. I said, well, damn, they make a lot of money. They got access to like every woman. They're like rock stars. Like nowadays, they hang out with everybody, private jets and whatever else, right? Mansions and on different coasts. So I said, okay, I'll do it. Because you know what? And then I'll start making excuses, because y'all ain't respecting what I've been teaching anyway. Y'all ain't listening. So you know what? Yeah, okay, I'll do it. Right. And they may ask for a certain thing. It might be, well, you got that son over there, and we want you to put him in a dress. Put your son in a dress. Keep him in a dress, at least for about 7 years or so. Put him in a dress, or we're gonna bring someone into your life. Let them have sex with your wife. Whatever it is, right? It could be different things. Now I get to the point where I'm now the biggest Christian mega church pastor, right? And I know I'm wrong. I know what I'm teaching is wrong. I know all of this is off. But I have built up such a storehouse of vanity I don't have the guts to now turn around and say, you know what, y'all? I might have the guts to tell you that I was wrong, but I don't have the guts to tell you how I actually got to where I got to. That's what I don't. I might tell you, well, you know, the Holy Spirit spoke to me and some things are on my heart, and I might play that game. So I can like now backtrack and be like, Elohim, aliens, Anunnaki, like I can talk like how I talk now. But I might not have the guts to say there actually was a demon that came knocking on my door one day in person, physically, sat down on my sofa or at my dining room table. We had a conversation, and that demon told me how they could make me this person. And not only did I do it, but I began to really appreciate and enjoy the relationship. I enjoyed perverting other people and leading other people astray. I enjoyed the power and being on that team. See, I would lose too much. I would be too afraid to say that to you. You see? That's what you're witnessing in a lot of instances. That's what you're witnessing. It's people they have created, or they've been able to acquire this image and this idea, and they don't want to let go of that earthly identity and to let you know just how much they have enjoyed engaging in the dark side. So it's no difference when people get caught in prostitution rings. Who gets to blame? The pimp. They was already out there. They was already on the blade doing what they were doing. They were out there for years. But we need a fall guy. Oh, I was trafficked. You was trafficked. Okay. And I'm not trying to be insensitive. I know what this platform is. And I know there's a lot of squares on this platform who ain't never stepped one foot, one night, one day in their life on the blade, who know nothing about the game, who know nothing about the life. You're not looking at one of them. Okay? That's all I'm going to say about that. And they'll say, how could you say that? Traffic. You didn't even know that word. We weren't even using that terminology 5, 6, 7 years ago. I remember when the terminology was white slavery. In the early 2000s, they came out with that term, white slavery. Then they changed the name to human trafficking, then sex trafficking. So these are new terms. Before it was just pandering, profiting from prostitution. You know, you got a pandering charge. You ain't heard the word pandering in a long time, have you? You see. Always need a fall guy, because the vanity won't allow you to say, I was out there, I was in the underworld, I was in the life, and I loved it. I loved my relationship with Satan. Some people just won't say that. And maybe they're to the point where, like, I don't love the relationship anymore, but they're scared to admit, I loved my relationship with Satan. We had a good old time together. You see? Look at all these gangster rappers. You think they don't love the pacts that they made? Yeah, I just had to give up a little booty, had to kill my homie, whatever, a couple little sacrifices, give up a little bit of my booty. But look, I'm going down in history. You see? All right, where we at? Beloved says it's interesting because I did that already. Master Menelek says sobriety brings a call to change and grow. There are so many gaps in our knowledge, and while coming up that when we're called to be introspective, many go with their ego over addressing what's missing. Right. When those things start to come up, when those calls for growth start to come up, the calls for change start to come up, you know, people will start to look outside. They'll go to the ego and be like, well, you did this to me. You did that to me. I was fine before this showed up. I was fine before I moved over here. I was fine before I got married, you know. And again, you're speaking to small spirited people. And your job, especially as a man, is to continue to be that sharp sword. Always be that sharp sword. That's your job. Forget about how anybody feels about it. F their feelings. Be that sharp sword. If they don't like it, they don't like it. Whatever. Because here's the thing: as melanin rich men and just as masculine men, nobody likes us anyway. That's just the truth of it. Nobody likes us. You see? And a lot of times people who do like us, what they like us for is for the fetishizing of masculinity. That's been going on since the plantation. That's why you have terms like BBC. Some of you might be familiar with that term, BBC. You see? It's they're fetishizing the idea of the black male phallus. You see? So nobody loves you. You know what I'm saying? Once you come to that understanding, nobody loves you. Okay, cool. So then why am I trying to appease people who don't love me anyway? I might as well just be who I am. Because you ain't gonna like me anyway, but at least I can stand on some principle and stand for some integrity. I might be able to save a couple of these babies out here. You see? But instead of letting the ego kick in, because when the ego kicks in, you're trying to maintain an identity and a presence and a thought. Who are you trying to maintain that for? Who do you think is looking at you that's going to care about you 5 minutes after they see that you're something that you're not, that they thought you were and you're not? Who's going to care? Why do you think that the spotlight is that spotlight phenomenon? So many people are looking at you and so many people care. They don't care. You see? They don't care. I released 2 EPs about BDSM. I didn't get one complaint. People love my Hard On project, and I'm working on Hard On 3 for next year. This is my year of consecration, so I'm not doing any songs like that this year. But the songs are already lined up. Anybody got a problem with it? Nobody said, but wait a minute, you're an ordained minister. You're an initiated priest. You're a Babalawo. You're a head of a community. How you over here talking about tying people up and beating them and hurting them? You into that? Yeah. Yep. Love it. Love it. Right? But then what is your perception of it? Is it based on your colonial thinking? Because again, like I've said many times, our sexuality has been colonized. So the things that we're saying are right or wrong are based off of what? The Catholic Church? Because that's where you got your perceptions of piety and purity from. It trickled down from the Catholic Church, what you should and should not do. Even your concept of virginal came from the Catholic Church. And we already know how they get busy. They're wild. We know about the wild parties they be having under those churches. You see? My concept and my ideation of my sexuality comes from my fathers, my ancient fathers. That's where it comes from. So when I speak about polygyny and somebody, oh, you just want sex, you stupid. You're stupid. You can't even see all that I have achieved in life. You see me rubbing my eyes on this live. You think I got time for sex all day? You've never seen me come on one of these lives and not look tired. But see, a Eurocentric thinking is thinking like, oh, everything is about this sexual this sexual conquest imperative. Oh, you want sex, you want sex, you want sex. And it causes your brain to shut down. Polygyny, you get less sex with polygyny. If you got 2-3 wives, that's only 2-3 women you having sex with. If I'm a bachelor and I got 6 dating apps installed on my phone, I could be having sex with 10, 12 women a month. Use your brain. At least once. Use your brain. Polygyny doesn't equate to more sex. It equates to less sex. Singlehood equates to more sex because there's no commitment. I have sex with you. We have sex twice. I say, hey, that was fun. Next time I'm in town, I'll see you or I won't, whatever. And then I move on to the next. It doesn't require courtships and all that stuff and commitment. And I got to now worry about where you live in and where you work in and your car's running right. And if you're safe and you're protected, that's less sex. But see, people are looking at Eastern culture, Shemitic culture, with a Eurocentric mind frame. So of course, if the Eurocentric thought pattern is corrupt, the worldview is going to be corrupt. I'll give you an example. When you watch a show and you see two young men on a show. Let's say it's two young guys in high school. They're in the locker room. They're joking and they're playing around. And then one is having like a moment where they really realizing they appreciate each other, and they're sitting on the locker bench next to each other or facing each other, and the music gets soft. What do you think is going to happen next? Yeah, see, they got all of us. They already got us. They got us. When I see scenes like that in shows, I already turn my head away. I already know what y'all getting ready to do. I'm already doing this. Or getting up, I'll get up and I'll go get something to drink. I already know they're getting ready to kiss. I already know it. Or they're going to touch each other and realize, like, I got a crush on my best friend. Like, I already know it's something like that. You see? That's the thinking. I'm surrounded by that thinking. It permeates everything. You see? So, beloved says, so then you have the ability to welcome and open yourself up to certain spirits. That's accountability. Or it could be trouble. It could be trouble. That's why so many comedians have such tragic lives, because in order to see everything and point it out to people and make it funny, you got to open yourself up to everything. That means spirits that would help you and spirits that would harm you. You know, I know that was an issue with my Baba. Definitely. He was so open and so welcoming of creativity and ideas that he would open himself up to everything. And sometimes that leads to even drug abuse, you know, because now you're open up to every spirit in order to feel something. It's like if I want to work on a music piece and I want to make a piece of music that hasn't been made before, I'm going to open myself up maybe to an ancient spirit that says, well, I have a sonic thought that I've been wanting to share with the world since the beginning of time. And I say, okay, well, share it with me then. I have to open myself up to that spirit. What comes with that? What comes with that constant vulnerability? You see? So it's not always like, you know, it's not always what it cracks up to be, if you will, you know. Okay, so are we getting down to the breakdown of Micah? Micah the prophet is speaking to the remnant of Yaqub, and they are mingled in between many people and Gentiles, right? So they're not being holy, right? There's no segregation happening. And Gentiles, but those cities will be destroyed, including the culture and idols of witchcraft. Okay, that's part of it. We got a little bit that Israel have taken on from mingling with the Gentiles. Okay. Yeah, you're the only one who broke it down, Sovereignities. Everybody else was afraid of Micah. Mm-hmm. El Korah says the journey of easing God out, right? The journey of the ego. Ron Knight says there's freedom you get when you don't seek approval as a man, right? The only approval that men should be seeking is the approval of the masters in their community. You know, that's why the master apprentice slave, the master apprentice relationship is crucial in the community. It's crucial. That's the only people you should be looking for approval of. You know, if you're looking to be a transportation and logistics expert, and you have someone in your community who's a transportation and logistic expert, and they say, I will take you under my wing and you can apprentice under me. That's the person you should be looking, as a man, you should be looking for approval from. You should be looking for approval from the creator, you know, from Yahweh Shai. Am I walking in the path? Am I walking in the right way? Am I walking in the truth? Outside of that, like, what are you doing, bro? You see, now, again, it may depend on your disposition. I think for some of us, we have a more warlike mind. We recognize we're at war. So when you recognize that you're at war, the taking on and the accepting of the sanctioning from other men is an act that really leads you to sort of have to recognize that you've been defeated. That is the behavior of a defeated people. See, that's how I perceive it. So I never really gave a crap about what any other man thought. Even when I was a young boy, I never gave a crap. I barely gave a crap about what my father thought of me, because I saw myself as my own man. I have to make my own way. I have the creator in my face, and the creator, I recognized at a very young age that the creator had expectations for me. So if you were saying something that didn't align with those expectations, you lost credibility in my eyes. I can distinctly remember being 7, 8, 9 years old and saying things like that, having those statements towards bus drivers and school teachers, like, you're a racist, and no, and because I recognized what my stance was with the creator. So as a man, like, to me, I think that's where your stance should always be as a man. Why would I seek you for approval unless you are a man who's walking in the way that I am apprenticing under? Now, there's another spiritual man that I know, and he's walking in the way that I'm walking. He's ahead of me. Yeah, I'm looking for his approval in that way. Absolutely. That's perfectly normal and natural. And notice that as a man, I'm only saying man. You heard me say woman once, and you won't. You never will, ever. Right? So, hell, I don't think I've even cared about the approval from my mother, now that I think about it. But I did have some like my grandmother's approval was, it was nice getting that. So there was women in my family. But you have to be like way up there for me to start caring. Like, you have to be past mothers and aunts. Even as a little boy, it wasn't until you got the grandparent level where I was like, okay, anything out of that, I'm like, you still trying to figure it out. Like, I could tell you don't really know what you're doing. But everybody's experience is different, so Menelek says no platonic brotherly appreciation. Any level of care has to lead to sex in these shows, right? That's why people will say things like, I've had people say that to me in terms of polygyny, like, oh, women only get into polygyny because they're lesbians and they want to sleep with each other. I've had older colored people say that to me, or I've had people say that I wouldn't send my son to an all-boys school because then they're going to start messing around with each other. Whose sexual imperative have you taken on to that's your immediate thought? That's what they're going to do. If you put a bunch of boys in a room together, they're going to start wanting to touch each other. You see, you've taken on the sexual imperative of somebody else's culture that may not necessarily apply to us at all. So then when people say things like, well, this kind of sexuality has existed since the beginning of time, prove it. Prove it. Because I know I don't have any of that celebrated in the mythology of my ethnic group. We don't have any of that celebrated. Okay, it may exist where this happened, but it's not. Everything that's ascribed isn't prescribed. Something might be written, but it doesn't mean that that's being prescribed that you should do that. I don't have any celebration of that in my ancient culture. None at all. Show me the pottery. Let me hear the poems. Show me the carvings. But I can go to Greece and Rome, and I can show you the images. So I don't try to co-opt my beginnings. Don't try to assimilate your beginnings with my beginnings. I don't have a problem with people recognizing and even complying with their own ethnic beginnings. That's fine. But we have to have the courage to do the same thing. And that's the decolonizing of the mind, the decolonizing of our sexuality, the decolonizing of our worldview. So we could see 5 guys together and not assume that, oh, they sleeping with each other. What? Why not think like it's 5 dudes together? They about to take over some stuff. They about to form a business together. You see? Or if I send my child to an all-boys school, like, he's gonna really develop some brotherhood and some camaraderie. He's gonna learn his position in the pecking order. He's gonna learn how to fight. He's gonna learn all the things that young boys need to learn. You see, when I'm coming from my own perspective. my own ancient and ethical perspectives, you see. All right, you're going to put your 2 cents in for Micah because we're about to close it down, Master Miller. Because y'all could have did better on Micah. That's okay. All right, let me give Master Miller a couple minutes. All right, so we're going to close out, and we're going to close out with whatever this Micah thing is. whatever Master Miller will be talking about. He's put his new 2 cents in because he did put his old 2 cents in. Oh, he said I put my you did. I read it. Oh, I guess because I didn't mention you before. My bad, brother. Come on, brother. Yeah, he did. But anyway, okay, so we're gonna close out, and as always, I want to thank everybody for coming through and for the sharing that you did, especially the sharing. I appreciate it. When people are kind of not just asking questions, but kind of sharing what you're working on and sharing what you've been thinking. I definitely appreciate the question that Steph Love asked in the beginning. I'll be honest, like about how Sabbath should be approached. I thought that was a very functional question. I like practical questions, to be honest with you. That's a very practical question. So that's like something Steph could just jump on and do like tonight. You know what I mean? So I like things that allow us to put our hands to stuff immediately and not necessarily delay, like, well, I'm gonna try or I'm gonna think about this. So give thanks for that question. That allowed us to do some good exploration. Jason, you never answered the question, by the way. Why do you want to know your familial God? But I would urge all of you, go back and listen. Those of you maybe didn't pick up what I was saying even about that part, as far as like running after strange idols. It's just weak stuff, and it's no different than what was just said, about seeking the approval of other men. Why would I seek the approval of something that's lateral to me? That doesn't make any sense. I want to make moves that take me in a vertical position. So I'm looking to the left and to the right and saying, do you like me? Do you like me? Turn to your neighbor next to you. I say, like you? Like, no, man. I'm looking for something that's tapping into my higher self and into my real self. I want to know about my family and the other realm. I want to know about how my family and my heavenly family feels about my earthly. How does my heavenly wife feel about my earthly wife? Because my heavenly wife is just made of, like I said, fire, air, and ether. When she looks down at the clay wife, or it looks down, because it might not even be a she thing up there, it might just be an it thing, but when it looks down at this thing made of water and clay, is it like, okay, that's cool, you know what I mean? Like, all right, cool. Or is it like, you couldn't get nothing better than that? So yeah. But cool, already doing it. Beautiful. All right. So with that, I'm going to exit out of the space, and I want to thank you all. I will be here when the sun comes back up. I don't want to say tomorrow because we already are tomorrow. Remember, the sundown is the next day. So technically we're already in Saturday, quote unquote. Okay. So I will be returning at noon, and we're going to continue the talks around the building of the divine family. Now we're talking about marriage. What is marriage? I know it's not a word that I use a lot because I don't really like the word that much, but for the sake of y'all understanding what I'm talking about, I use certain words. But we're going to be talking about marriage. Last strong, we talked about courting, right? So we went from vetting the woman to vetting the man to courting. Now we're going to talk about marriage, and then we're going to just keep going through it. This one will be a good one as well, because what the heck is a freaking marriage? What the heck is it? What constitutes a marriage, and are all marriages intentional? So I'm going to kind of get into that. Like, sometimes we end up in marriages that we know nothing about, or we forgot about. We're married to entities, even people that we forgot completely about. It's like being in a royal family and being betrothed at like two years old. You're betrothed to someone else, for an alliance between kingdoms, and you don't even know you're betrothed. You just living your life playing and having fun. You see, sometimes we're betrothed at a very young age and we don't even know, but it's creating a blockage for things that we need to get done in our lives and for relationships that we seek to have, because we always have a marriage. Sometimes it even creates a sexual sort of confusion, because we might be mated to something that is pushing us towards a certain polarity, and we're having some challenges there. So you definitely want to check out, come back at noon for the Sabbath Insight, and we'll be doing it all over again. All right. Until then, everyone, I'll see you in a few. All right. I'll see you in a few. I'll see you at noon, same channel at noon. All right. Shalom.